So this morning I am having a chat with Wendy Griffiths, who is headmistress of independent girls' school Tudor Hall. Good morning, Wendy.
Good morning, Panda.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you for agreeing to chat today. Wendy, did you always have aspirations to become a headmistress?
No, I never really had the aspirations to become a headmistress. In fact, I spent 19 years of my career having a wonderful time doing all sorts of things, teaching biology, doing a lot of outward bound, helping with plays, and just generally getting stuck in with the children. But actually it was when a particular member of staff left, and I considered really how fantastic it would be if I could be her replacement as head of sixth form. And once I became head of sixth form and realized how much I could affect change and get to many more children than I could just through the classroom or DAV or climbing a mountain. And so I suppose it started with that. And then pretty quickly I went from one role in senior management to another to headship. So
fantastic. And how long have you been headmistress of Tudor for now?
I've been a tutor for 16 years, I have announced my retirement, and they are choosing my successor at the moment, and I will be here until December 21.
Are you feeling have you got mixed feelings about your retirement, or are you sort of feeling
you know, I think when you've been doing a job and it's as full on as being a head is, and then we have a whole new layer of things on top of it with the COVID pandemic, yes. You know, it has focused my mind in that actually it might be quite nice not to be hurtling around 150 miles an hour the whole time. That said, I will miss the children. I will really, really miss the children.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. And what would you have done if you hadn't gone into education?
Well, I wasn't ever destined to go into education. I suppose that's a case for a lot of people. My dream when I was at school was I was going to do medicine because I did sciences at A level, but things didn't go according to plan. And so I ended up doing biology, and having done biology and really not thought about what I wanted to do afterwards, I did a PGC, and it was literally, I went to my first school and just thought, right, this is what I want to do. And I have done ever since.
Fantastic. How would you describe the culture and ethos of Tudor?
I think actually this is something I'm obviously asked regularly, and I think it's quite hard to answer, but I will attempt it. But one of the things that people always say is that you can feel the ethos of Tudor when you visit. So Tudor is a school where all the girls are known by name. And what being known by name means is that they feel valued. So there's a very, very strong community. They also know that they're fantastically well supported, both academically and pastorally. So it's brought in a culture, ironically, not of being a cozy little girls' school, of one of the potential to take risks, to try something and get it wrong, because they know that they are safe in this environment and that they learn those things here. The girls would say it's one where friendships are at the center of everything, and having strong friendships and very strong relationships, both with each other, but also with their teachers, is really very much part of the ethos.
Yes, yeah. Would you say that, do you think schools have a sort of type of pupil?
Well, I think what we say very definitely is we're a broad church. So we are looking for all sorts of children to come to Tudor Hall. And I definitely would not want one type. So, you know, I've taught in different sorts of schools. So if you're a highly selective school, inevitably the main criterion for entry is your IQ. And therefore you've immediately got one big similarity within the group. And that brings with it both joy and sometimes pain for the pupils, because it becomes slightly rarefied as an atmosphere. So for me, it was always about holistic education. Having looked at lots of different schools and taught in three, before Tudor, been an inspector, etc., and having an absolute vision, that really what I felt was that if you put a lot of similar children together, in the end, they will not necessarily rub along in the way that you'd like them to, because they tend to be rather sharp-elbowed, and they don't learn that actually the world is full of very different people, and it doesn't mean because you're not very good at the written English that you're not able. Or that if your maths is more of a struggle for you, that you're not fantastically talented in a different way.
Other areas.
So therefore Tudor hasn't got a type. What I did think though about when you asked me that question was, I think by the time they leave, loads of people would say to you, you can tell a Tudor Hall girl. And that doesn't mean that they've all become little sausages coming out at the other end. It's because there is something quite uncanny about the way they are with people, and how easy they are with people, and how comfortable they are with themselves. So we start with a mixed bag, but you know, when we say goodbye to them, we look at them, they're all very different in what they want to do, what they've liked at school, but actually they have a sense of themselves. So.
Yes. No, that's really good. That's really good. I know a few Tudor girls and ex-Tudor girls, and actually you can tell,
yeah,
when they've come from Tudor, and they're all lovely, well-rounded characters, and down to earth. And
so I saw somebody this week as a prospective parent who said to me, I said, oh, you know, what's brought you to Tudor Hall? And she said, all my best friends went to Tudor Hall and I didn't. And actually, I want for my daughter what they had.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know, it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And what are your thoughts on sort of competition and sort of winning, you know, matches and the competitiveness of everything?
I'm pretty competitive. I'm pretty competitive, and I'm not the one who says to them, you know, fantastic, you lost 10-0. I'm based in realism, but I will always congratulate the girls, whatever they've done, if they've given their best, which is what it's about. I think competition in an environment like Tudor is important. I mean, as I said earlier, they feel safe, they feel they have an environment where they can push themselves. So healthy competition is a positive thing. Where it can go wrong is where really the competition is all that it is about. And then they lose sight of what it's like for other people when they don't win, or they don't get the best top mark in maths or whatever it is. So that's where you've got to really work hard to ensure they understand, you know, you might be brilliant at maths, but you're not so good at hockey, whereas she is amazing at hockey and you're not. So, you know, it's that sort of understanding. But yes, I think you've got to have a little bit of competition.
It's healthy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is healthy.
Yeah. And also learning to lose as well, because in life, you know, you don't always get what you want, and you know, not always winning, are you? So you've got to take it gracefully.
That's why failure is a big part of education. You know, learning to fail. You know, it's tough, especially for those who find academic work very easy, and then they, you know, apply for Oxbridge, and it's the first time in their life where somebody rejects them on the basis of their academic profile. But you know, I'm really bright. Well, actually, you know, you just happen to not be the right fit here. And that's a very, very important lesson to learn.
And so over the last sort of 30 years or so, expectations of you know, girls growing up to be young women has changed a lot, from perhaps being a housewife, you know, back in the day, to now more often having careers. How do you think Tudor has adapted to that change?
Well, I suppose So I was at school more than 30 years ago. And actually, I went to a grammar school, not an independent school. But I was brought up with the mantra, when you go to university. It was not if, it was when. And from a family where nobody went to university. So I was raised in a household where, you know, to have ambition, to have drive was very important. And there were only two sisters, no brothers. So therefore, you know, we were going for it. And I suppose when I came, it was a very definite statement to the girls. I had a husband, I had a 5-year-old daughter at the time. I was, you know, doing a big job, and my husband was supporting me to do the big job. So from that moment onwards, you know, I think it's Gandhi who says, you know, if you want change, be the change. Well, effectively, I was the change, because as soon as I walked through the door, I spoke a different language. And it was, when you go to university and you can do whatever you want to. That's not saying that my predecessor hadn't said that, but it is easier to convince the children if you're role modeling in the way that you are. And I appointed around me a lot of women in similar situations. So Tudor, definitely. I mean, the girls, they don't think about leaving school and becoming a housewife. No. But what I always say to them is, education is about giving you options. It's not about one route. If you choose to go to university and then 2 years later bring up your family, fantastic. Yeah. But you've still got the option, because you've got a great education behind you. Yeah. But to have a great education and then to say, you know, I don't want to do anything with it, you know, it's pushing them or encouraging them to go as far as they can is the important message, I think. Yeah. And, you know, generally, all my leavers last year, except for one, have gone on to university. And what the one girl is going to do Oxford Business and Media course, and it's an exec PA course. Yeah. But I think she'll go to university the following year. Yeah. Because she just thinks it's a great thing to do. She'll have a fantastic qualification, and she can temp and through her holidays, and you know. So I think it's just having you know, the same message. Make the most of your education, because then you can do what you want. And if that is to give up and have a family when you're 30 or 28 or whatever it is, so be it. Yeah,
you've got the options.
You've got options.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say about mental health and eating disorders and things like that? Do you think that's becoming more of an issue, or has become more of an issue in the last few years?
Well, it's certainly in my career become more of an issue. I suppose what's happened in the last 5 years, it's become, mental health particularly has become a bit of a buzzword or phrase. Yeah. You know, I can't open the paper, can you, without some article referring to challenges of mental health, not just in young people, but in adults as well. Yeah. Has it got worse? Well, it's certainly more talked about. It is more supported. It's more out in the open. I couldn't possibly tell, because I think I worked alongside a lot of people when I first started teaching who probably had mental health issues, but it was never discussed or disclosed. Whereas now you support your staff who are struggling with any sort of issue, and similarly your pupils. Yeah. So I think, you know, a different answer is, I think the world has become more complicated for young people, which could mean that it's led to an increase in mental health issues. Yeah. You know, it's just different.
Yeah. I mean, this sort of leads on to my next question. What are your thoughts towards, you know, social media, TikTok and all that stuff, which I think probably leads to, you know, more pressure on the children?
Yes, there's no doubt about that. That social media is a huge challenge for young people. They feel they have to have a presence, and many of them are not robust enough to have a presence. I mean, it's fascinating watching or reading about a lot of adults who are in the media the whole time saying that they've decided not to be on Instagram or whatever platform they're using any longer, because they've realized that actually for the few good comments, It's the ones that are negative that, of course, that cost you. And I think, you know, I'd like to think I was an expert in young women, because I've only ever worked in all girls schools. And there is a vulnerability around girls in puberty and, you know, just coming through puberty, where they begin, some of them, to think about everything relating to themselves. And therefore having something which is constantly, you know, requires you to put an image on it and for people to like it or not like it. You know, I'd make jokes to the girls when I was, you know, on a school trip when I was at school, nobody took any photos. So, I mean, there's huge chunks of my life where I know I went to certain places, but I couldn't produce a record of it.
No.
Because they've got a record of every minute of every day if you let them have it. And it's, well, first of all, it's a huge waste of time as far as I'm concerned, but also it leads to increasing vulnerability.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So we're pretty tough on phones at Tudor.
Yeah.
So I'm not one of those schools who, you know, changed my policy. We stuck with a very tight policy and we hold it to now, which is there are only the sixth form have their phones during the school day, I should say. And dependent on your age, you have them for chunks of time in the evening, but then they're taken back in overnight.
I think it's a very good thing, isn't it? Very good thing.
Well, that is certainly what the parents feel. Of course, the girls are always pushing for more.
No, I'm sure they don't like it. They won't like it.
You know, we are the parents, so we say no.
Exactly. And so COVID, has that resulted in a number of parents being unable to pay school fees because of being furloughed, I don't know, losing their jobs, having salary cuts, etc.? Have you faced that problem?
Yeah. Certainly some parents have had issues of hardship. I mean, huge sectors of the population, events, all of hospitality, etc. It's a relatively small number for us, but for us, we have been able to support parents through what is a very difficult time. But yes, I mean, it's everywhere, isn't it?
It is everywhere, yeah, unfortunately. How did Tudor sort of pivot to homeschooling? What did you use? Did you use Google Classroom or? No,
Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
and Zoom for sport and other sessions that we wanted to do where we wanted to group them together. We'd use Zoom as well, but predominantly all the teaching, most of the teaching I would say, was done through Teams.
Yes.
Well, I think we have pivoted extraordinarily well because my parents, nobody has moaned, they've only said good things.
Oh, that's good.
So, I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, isn't it? And they were remarkably grateful, stressed about it because some of them found themselves at home with 11-year-old children where they thought they'd gone to a boarding school and suddenly they were working from home and they're trying to manage their children. But we very definitely sent out the message that we would teach the normal timetable from first thing in the morning to the end of the day. For junior girls, we didn't set prep, but for seniors, we set prep as well. And therefore, the parents were grateful because it didn't require them to get involved because they had a teacher on the screen who was dealing with what was going on. So, yeah, I mean, looking back, you know, I think everybody said it and it almost sounds cliche, but we made probably 5 years worth of progress in 2 weeks.
It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing.
It is amazing. You know, people who said, I'll never use IT, you know, we've got 1, 2 Luddites, everybody does. Suddenly, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been extraordinary.
And would you say there are any sort of good things that have come from this period of homeschooling that you might sort of take forward, you know, to apply to normal school life? Yeah,
definitely. We, well, first of all, what I'm doing with you now on Zoom.
Yeah.
So yesterday I Zoomed with prospective parents. In the end, we want parents to come back and visit the site, but I'm now Zooming with parents in US. These people were in Canberra. Whereas previously, we never even thought about it.
No.
You know, we would just have them email, contact admissions, etc. But having a face-to-face with the head or the deputy head is fantastic. It's allowing us, we made lots of jokes around snow days, because of course one of the banes of a boarding school's life is the fact that we have 250 boarders on a snow day and no staff. So now, the end of snow days, it's school days, they're in the classroom.
Children aren't going to be too chuffed about that, are they?
Yes, I'm not sure the teachers are actually, but anyway,
No.
so that gives those obvious advantages. Plus, going forward, we've got only a handful of children, a couple in China, one in Singapore, who haven't returned this term because their parents are very anxious. So they're joining lessons. Some are joining even with the time difference, but otherwise we're recording all the lessons so they can do their online learning. And it'll be the same, you know, obviously we're paranoid about having to send children home, but if we go into a quarantine situation and girls have got to self-isolate at home, then they'll be able to carry on their education if they're not, you know, if they're well. But also lots of other things, which is in the classroom, the ability, because we've said for the first time our years 7 and 8 have to bring a laptop back because we don't know what's coming.
No.
It's also provided the opportunity for them, you know, to be set work, and, you know, internet provision is excellent. So therefore they can just crack on together in lessons. I mean, yeah, it's had definite changes, which will be long term.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good that some good's come out of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so your teaching staff, have you had to furlough any of those? Because
no,
you were
we
doing...
didn't furlough any of the teaching staff because we literally carried on a full timetable.
Yeah.
So PE was slightly trickier because we did do PE, but we did, you know, exercise, dance, and so on. But otherwise, everybody was teaching flat out and marking. So,
that's brilliant. Are there any sort of new subjects or skills that you're introducing to the curriculum?
As a consequence of COVID, or just generally?
Just generally, I suppose, yes. Just generally.
Well, I suppose we started this last year an impact program, which is a sort of careers PSHE program, which happens in tutor time every morning. We extended tutor time to make that work. They also have PSHE, but this was more, our tutor groups are small, maximum of 10 girls in a tutor group. So it serves many purposes, as well as the obvious educational aspects, but it's also improving things like public speaking, because they have to prepare things, discuss things. So that's happened, but also in terms of skills, because of COVID, I mean, the girls' skills shot up overnight. And we've always, I mean, for the last 4 years have taught computing, as opposed, we do basic IT, but then we teach computing at GCSE. So that will continue. Perhaps more will have an interest in it. I don't know yet. We'll see if that has a long-term effect.
And has Corona affected the sports you can now play? Or have you managed, are you sort of able to, I know you can't play, I mean, obviously probably, like, I'm sure all schools cannot play matches against each other now, can they? Or well, maybe that's just Cheltenham, I don't know. And
okay, well, the situation at the moment is, so at the moment, for the first couple of weekends which we've had at school, we've done within the bubbles, we've done our inter-school tournaments in all sorts of things and kept, you know, a lot of sport going. But they are training for hockey, which is this term's sport.
Yes.
Now, according to the English Hockey Association, we could be doing competitive matches, but only with local schools. And we have got local schools we could play. We've held back on that.
Yeah.
And I think with what's happening at the moment, it's likely we'll have to hold back again.
Yes.
We were thinking, we've got our EXIAT this weekend. We were wondering whether we'd review it after EXIAT, but I think we're going to hold on for another couple of weeks now.
After last night. I think we're all going to have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so school fees have risen above inflation during the past sort of 20 years or so. Why do you think that is? And do you think that trend will continue?
Well, I think, there's been huge amounts of discussion around this area, around what people call the arms race, which is increasingly competitive sort of attitude towards your facilities. And definitely, my swimming pool's not as big as your swimming pool, etc., is the sort of talk as opposed to the playground talk.
Yeah.
It has been, I would say, for 20 years, that has been a pressure on schools where they feel, we have to improve our facilities because our competitors have. And that brings huge cost. There's also the other side of that, the sort of competitive nature of, the market. Oh, we've got ex-sports coaches, not teachers. Oh, we better have those as well as teachers.
Yes.
In the time that I've been in education, you go into school and a small girls' school have had 2 people teaching sport. I've got an army teaching sport. And you've got to, because, you're playing 3 different sports, you need coaches, you need general PE teachers. So costs, definitely have gone up. I think, however, measured you are in terms of pushing things forward, we've started fundraising, I have done over the last few years, to support development, because you can't expect to do all of that out of fees anymore, because if you do, the fees are going to be astronomical, you'll have no pupils. So it's looking for those who will support you to do the things that will benefit the children. But also I think people are asking questions. A very wise woman that I knew, who was a head for many, many years, she used to say, when I was appraised by her, and she used to say, every time you think of something, Wendy, ask yourself, what impact will this have on the children? So she said, it might be a lovely new initiative that you think's fantastic, there's loads of paperwork associated with it and all the staff are crumbling. She said, if the children will have a better educational experience as a consequence of it, okay, you go for it. And I think that's the same with facilities. I think you have to say, all right, what difference will a 25-metre indoor pool make to Tudor Hall? So I've got a pool and it's covered. It's only 18.5 metres or whatever. And some might say, that's not good enough, is it? Exactly. So, if you are a potential Olympian, then we've got Banbury, which has a fantastic swimming club, and our girls can go there. But you've got to keep perspective, really. Do
you think the future of private education is safe?
I think it is for the moment, because the government have got their hands full. So I think we've got stay of execution at the moment. No, I think what's gone on in terms of attitudes to private education is quite scary, when you get people who themselves went to some of the most well-known educational establishments and globally known, and are then saying, oh no, we can't have this in the independent sector benefiting from. It is tricky. But at the moment, I think what we did during lockdown compared to the state sector, as much as it breaks my heart to say it, is evidence of how good the educational experience is here. And if they want us to share that, which is what we do, we have a partner school in Banbury. It's a primary school that we're really, really heavily involved with, not giving money, but teachers regularly, or lots of specialist teaching. That's where our place is, I feel, is to, we can't do what Eton has done and set up our own privately funded state school, but we can, on the other hand, send teachers to teach French or Spanish or dance or drama or music, all of which we do with a local primary, and the difference it makes for those children. So I think, at the moment, all the things that have been in the press are quiet, and quite rightly, because we've got other agendas at the moment, which we should be focusing on. But I don't think it's over. No, I think it'll come back.
And do you find good teaching staff? Do you find them hard to find? Or would you say there's a big pool?
Well, I would say that there's not a big pool.
No.
And particularly in what are recognised as a shortage subjects, so mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, and modern languages. And that's going to get worse because nobody's doing modern languages at university, it seems. So, you know, there are big challenges there. But I am an optimist. So when I advertise for a job, I have a little mantra, which is you only need one excellent candidate. You know, and you could have 30 and think none of these can do the job. So it's a question of, you know, really sifting and working at it, and being brave and not appointing if you don't get the right person.
Yeah.
But it can be challenging.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So finally, just wanted to ask you, so you're retiring in 18 months. What do you have plans? Is there anything that you really want to go and do?
Yeah, so I think I love travel. My husband and I love travel. Our daughter's 22 now, so she also loves travel, interesting enough, but she won't be traveling with us. So I think one of the agendas is greater travel, longer stints, but we don't want to do that forever. You know, we just want to have, we'd like to go off and have 4 months away, because we've never been able to do that. And people say we always have long holidays as teachers. Well, they don't realise you have to be here for GCSE results, A-level results, prepare for the term, end the previous term. So, you know, we love India, we love Asia, so we would love the opportunity to travel more extensively. But we also love walking. We have a dog, so we would love, you know, to take a cottage, say in Yorkshire for a month and just have a different pace of life. And, you know,
how lovely. You'll be needing it more than ever, I think, after this period of time.
Yes, I certainly am not, you know, people are saying, oh, what, you know, would you be interested in being the governor of? At this time, I'm just saying, I'm just going to think about what I want to do when I retire, not now.
No.
Well, my job is full on, so therefore, you know, I haven't got time to think about what's going to happen next. All I know is it'll be different, and it'll be, you know, a different pace, I think.
It must be pretty exhausting for you at the moment.
It's relentless at the moment, to be honest. It's, I mean, it's never straightforward the beginning of an autumn term, but you know, you've got all the new staff, new pupils, new systems, and then on top of that, you've got COVID. And I mean, the systems in place, the multi-layering of the protocols to ensure that we're safe in every context. So
very hard.
And then worrying about it. You know,
exactly.
You can't help not worry about it.
No. Well, honestly, I'm very grateful to you for talking to me today, particularly during these tricky times when I'm sure you've got a whole pile of things you need to be doing.
Always, but that doesn't change, so it doesn't matter. Half an hour of my time, it'll all still be waiting.
Oh, well, thank you very, very much, Wendy.
Great to talk to you, Panda.
And you.
Okay, bye-bye.